Everybody, it's Rob again. Hey, I put out a couple videos the last couple weeks, and I got quite a few questions on some of the videos that I put out, and so I want to try to address some of those issues or questions. Most of them pertain to the stereo system, so I'm going to go with that first. Batteries. People have asked me how many batteries, what kind of batteries am I using, what's the setup. So I like to keep things relatively simple, aside from an extremely extensive stereo system. But the batteries, I just use stock batteries. The 2015s, they came with 2 battery setup, and that's all I use. So here it is. And again, in one of my previous videos, I told y'all that I loosened them up and just kind of pushed them back a little bit. Pushed them back that way and then back that way some to make room for my sub in here. That's it. I just use the 2 stock batteries, and that's it. And what I've noticed so far, and I've only had it out on the water once since I've had the new setup done, and so my neighbor Jeremy and I have been kind of watching our boats quite a bit, or specifically the voltage regulator that displays on the dash. We got about probably a good hour, a little bit more than an hour before it started to kind of drop a little bit. We both kind of started to we would take turns back and forth, listen to his, listen to mine, start mine, you know stuff like that. But right when it gets down to like 11.7, 11.6 volts, is kind of when we tried to start it up. Now we can get lower than that. I do believe that these motors need about 10.8 or 7 to start. So we haven't ran it down to where we're up shit creek yet. But what we did notice is, as soon as we park, like out there at the islands, we got a fully charged battery. It goes from 12.4 to about 11.9 in like 20 minutes. The top end goes really quick, but there's a stalemate between 11.9, 11.5, 6, around there. It kind of levels out and takes a while to start kicking that battery's ass. So as of right now, we made it, like I said, a little bit more than an hour. And again, mine has 2 8-channel amps. Jeremy has 2 6-channel amps. So realistically, we could probably get 2 hours, and I think we'll probably take the boats out this weekend. So I think we'll try it a little bit more, push it a little bit further, see how much we can get out of these things. Then I'll do another follow-up in another video, kind of tell you what I thought, what we found out. So that's it on the batteries. Stock batteries. I got a list here on stuff people were asking, so give me a second here. LED wires. All right. What wires did I use for LEDs when I put my LEDs in? There's a small little wire. It's gray encased, and I left it at the house like a jackass. But it's just a small gray wire. I got it from Lowe's. It was 500 feet long, and was only like 45 bucks. Now the wires with the LEDs are extremely thin. I want to say they're like 20 gauge, really tiny ass wires. And that's what this is. This wire that I got, it's encased in a gray deal, and there's just a positive and negative in there, and then there's a ground. I just cut the ground off because you don't need it. You just use the red and the black. Extremely cheap, extremely thin and small. Works great with the LEDs. Like I said, it's gray, and what I could do is I could post a picture maybe at the end of this video. Like I said, I forgot the damn roll at the house, so that's what I'll do. I'll post a picture of the wire that I got at the end of the video. It's not very expensive. It's pretty easy to work with. So that's pretty simple. All right, what's the next? Cutting holes for speakers. Last night I was going back and forth with a few people on the Jet Boat forum, and there was a question about, is there a good quality speaker on the market for these newer boats? They're like 5 1/4 or some shit like that you can put in here without cutting holes. Yes, there are some. but I think at this point y'all are going to know my opinion on speakers. The smaller they are, I mean, you're just not going to get the performance. Now, JL has some speakers that'll fit in here, and they will sound great. But when you start getting into top-end videos and wanting to be really loud, they're gonna kind of fall back. But for just everyday listening, and if you're not trying to jam out, the JLs make a great speaker that'll fit in these boats without having to cut them. So if that's all you're looking for, you want a good quality sound at kind of regular volumes, that's a good one. I've heard wet sounds before. They sound good, but they don't compare to the JLs. I gotta tell you, the JLs are much nicer at that size. So anything outside of that, you're just gonna have to cut holes. And it's not very difficult, y'all. It really isn't. You can use a scroll saw. You can use a Dremel. If you use any of those, I'll tell you, you need to have a bunch of bits and a bunch of blades, because the fiberglass will seriously just round that shit right off real quick. When we did Jeremy's, we cut a hole in his compartment to mount his grill on his sub. I think we went through a couple of bits. It just rounded that shit off, made it nice and smooth, or they broke in half. So you're going to need a good amount of them if you're going to end up doing it yourself. Same with the blades on the saw. You're going to need a few of them, because the fiberglass just wear that shit right out. So, alright, hope that answers that question. Next one. How to get the wires in the tower for tower speakers. Okay, honest to God, this is something I had no idea about. And when I first did my other boat, I struggled to figure out the best way to do it. Now, I got mine covered up, but these are, as you can see, these are mine. Or I'll go on the other side, you can see. They just cut a hole in there, right? So here's what the guy told me on my other boat, and this is how I figured it out. He cut that first hole, and then this one, like this is my boat now, so what he did was he cut a hole in there, and that little plastic shit's starting to fray. I'm gonna have to get a new one there. So we cut this hole, right? This joker got some string, like really thin string, and he tied like a piece of fabric around it, real thin fabric, so it's got a little bit of mass to it, right? And he shoved it in this hole, and then he put a shop vac to the hole up top that he did for that tower speaker. And honest to God, it just sucked that string right through the tubes and all the way out. And that's how they ran the wire. And then they just tied the speaker wire to that string and then pulled it back through. Blown away how simple that is. So that's how these guys did it. So again, just to show you, this guy that did this wakeboard for me, he just drilled straight down here. This is solid right here. He was telling me that's probably 4 or 5 inches deep worth of fiberglass plywood, shit like that. And then that's how he ran it up. And then he ran it up the tube into both pods. Simple as shit. Real easy. That's how you get it in there. I've never done it, but I can't imagine it's that difficult. So yeah, that's how they did that one. And I'm assuming that's how they do most of them. Pretty simple shit. So I hope that answers the question on that one. Now, I think I got one left. Okay, the zero gauge wire. The zero gauge wire, I got a couple questions on that, because most amplifiers will not accept a zero gauge wire because it's just so damn thick. And you can see right here. Let's see if I can get a difference here. This is 0 gauge wire, right? This one is 4 gauge. Okay? So you can see there's a huge difference in these. So here's what I'm going to show you. This is what my stereo guy did for me. I ran, see if I can get this straight. I ran 4 gauge all the way up. You can see them where they come in right here. And what he did is he went and bought this block, and he took 4 gauge right here, 4 gauge power, 4 gauge negative, and then that's how he ran them up to each amp. right there. So he just did a joint right there and runs it up to that one. And that was it. So that's how I got the 0 gauge up to my amps. It was that easy. Couple bucks. I think it was like $8 or $9 for that little power block that he put in there. But when you use 0 gauge wire, obviously the bigger the wire, the more efficient the signal runs through it. So that was my intent, was to efficiently run as much power to those amps as I possibly could. Clear signal all the way through. And I've got less than 12 inches worth of 4 gauge. So these amps will be able to perform at their highest peak and most efficient, because they're getting an ass ton of power, you know, directly to them. So that is the end of my list. And I do believe, wires, holes, batteries, yeah, I do believe I've covered everything. I'm sure somebody's going to have another couple questions, which is cool. It's starting to get warm around here, so we're going to start heading out on the water again, unless it gets windy. But so yeah, if there's any questions that anybody's got, something that I haven't covered yet, by all means, drop me a line and I'll answer as quick as I can. And if it's something I can do a video for, I'll do one up. So, alright y'all, have a good one.